All right, so today I want you to imagine something. A narrow strip of water, barely 21 miles across, surrounded by mounting tension, steeped in blood-soaked history, and saturated with raw military power. Ships moving slowly, massive oil tankers painting targets on their own hulls, fighter jets screaming overhead, radar systems scanning every inch of the sky. And somewhere out there, in the murky depths and hazy air, invisible lines are being crossed. This is the Strait of Hormuz, and right now, it's one of the most dangerous places on Earth. Now, at the absolute center of this geopolitical storm sits the USS Abraham Lincoln, a Nimitz-class nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. Calling it a ship is an understatement. Think of it as a floating sovereign military installation, a titan of American steel weighing over 100,000 tons, powered by dual nuclear reactors operating for decades without refueling. Nearly 90 advanced aircraft on board. Over 5,000 personnel, pilots, engineers, tactical officers. It holds enough kinetic firepower to systematically dismantle an entire nation's military infrastructure in an afternoon. And it's sitting out there in the turbulent waters of the Arabian Sea, not by accident. It is there by design. Because days ago, the United States launched a massive initiative, Project Freedom, a highly coordinated naval operation designed with one objective: to escort commercial vessels safely through the lethal gauntlet of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, to the untrained ear, that might sound routine, but it's not, because this waterway is the jugular vein of the global economy, carrying 25% of the world's maritime oil trade. That's 21 million barrels moving every single day. 1 out of every 4 barrels of oil moving across the sea to fuel the world passes through this suffocating bottleneck. So when tension rises here, the entire world feels the tremors. Prices fluctuate. Markets react with panic. Freight insurance skyrockets. Governments suddenly start paying very close attention. And that's exactly what's happening now. The pressure cooker is whistling because out of nowhere, the Islamic Republic of Iran comes out with a staggering claim. They say they launched missiles, and not just into the empty ocean. They claim they actually hit U.S. naval vessels, including the USS Abraham Lincoln itself. Pause for a second. That is not a small claim. No U.S. aircraft carrier has been critically disabled by enemy fire since the Second World War. That is an incendiary statement that triggers theater-wide military escalation. Almost immediately, the United States responds. CENTCOM releases a definitive statement, clear and stripped of diplomatic ambiguity. They say, the claim is entirely false. No ship was hit. No structural damage occurred. The missiles didn't even breach the outer defensive perimeter. So now, we find ourselves staring at two completely irreconcilable narratives. And this is where the modern battlefield gets interesting, because modern conflict isn't just fought with high explosives, it's fought with information, cognitive warfare. Iran pushes a narrative of absolute strength. They want their domestic audience to believe they struck one of the most formidable naval assets in history. The U.S. pushes a narrative of absolute control, projecting an aura of invulnerability, saying nothing happened, the shield holds. So what's the actual truth? As with most things in geopolitics, it lies in the murky middle. Satellite telemetry suggests Iran did launch missiles. The launch signatures were detected, but there is absolutely zero credible confirmation, no visual evidence, no distress calls that anything was actually struck. So why make a claim that can be so easily disproven? Why tempt the wrath of the U.S. military? The answer is simple: perception. If you cannot defeat your opponent physically, you challenge them psychologically. Iran's commanders are not naive. They understand the brutal mathematics of conventional warfare and know they cannot match the United States Navy in a symmetric conflict. The U.S. Navy is simply too technologically advanced and deeply integrated. So instead, Iran plays a different game entirely: asymmetric warfare. This is where the Persian Gulf gets exceptionally complicated. Asymmetric warfare isn't about matching your enemy's ship for ship. It's about exploiting blind spots and leveraging the environment. Iran utilizes the IRGC Navy, whose doctrine is built around localized chaos. They use fast attack boats, small, agile, heavily armed vessels. Individually, they are insignificant, but they swarm. 10, 20, 50 boats coming from multiple vectors at high speed, overwhelming radar tracking systems and creating deadly confusion. They deploy sophisticated naval mines, weapons of denial that don't need a pilot or fuel to devastate a commercial tanker. They rely on coastal anti-ship cruise missiles like the Nor, sea-skimming munitions that fly incredibly low, remaining virtually undetectable until they are mere miles away. And most importantly, they manufacture uncertainty. In global logistics, uncertainty slows everything down. In a place as hypercritical as the Strait of Hormuz, slowing things down is a weapon of mass economic disruption. Put yourself in the shoes of a maritime professional. If you command a vessel carrying $200 million worth of crude oil, would you willingly sail into a narrow corridor where anti-ship missiles are flying, where mines might be tethered, where fast boats could board your vessel in the dead of night? Probably not. You would hesitate. You would reroute. And that creeping paralysis of trade is exactly what Iran is trying to engineer. Even without winning a kinetic battle, they can choke the global economy. That brings us right back to Project Freedom. The Pentagon doesn't move aircraft carriers just to put on a show. It is a calculated response to compounding pressure and the real threat of regional instability. The scale of this operation is staggering. We are talking about 15,000 American service members, over 100 tactical next-generation aircraft, Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers equipped with the Aegis combat system, the most advanced defense architecture ever conceived, dedicated electronic warfare platforms like the EA-18G Growler designed to blind incoming threats, high-altitude unmanned drones feeding real-time data back to command centers. This is the manifestation of hard power projected directly into a global flashpoint. The stated goal is simple: ensure freedom of navigation, make absolutely certain civilian ships can move without harassment, keep the arteries of global trade flowing. But this isn't a one-sided equation, because while the United States possesses undeniable technological superiority, Iran possesses the geography. And in naval warfare, geography is destiny. The Strait of Hormuz is narrow, constrained, and predictable. Ships are forced into designated lanes with limited maneuverability, making them exceptionally vulnerable. Iran's military architects know this intimately and have built their doctrine around it. They don't need to build a blue water navy, they just need to control the choke points. Let's pivot and talk about technology. The U.S. military's defensive systems are deeply, seamlessly integrated. The data link is the true weapon. The Aegis combat system tracks over 100 inbound threats simultaneously, calculating intercept points in milliseconds. F-35 fighter jets act as flying supercomputers, sharing targeting data instantly with destroyers. Electronic warfare suites digitally blind the enemy. Unblinking drones feed a centralized neural network. This interconnected loop is the kill chain: detection, tracking, targeting, engagement. When the system works, that entire chain happens in seconds. So while Iran relies on unpredictable chaos, the U.S. responds with calculating structure and absolute coordination. That creates a terrifying standoff. It's no longer about who has more bombs, it's about whose network holds up better under extreme pressure. But mapping out hardware isn't the full picture. Behind the missiles and carriers is high-stakes global politics. Countries like the UK, France, Germany, Japan, and India are watching with bated breath because their economies are tied to Middle Eastern oil. If the strait is mined, they face immediate energy shortages and inflation. They are walking a tightrope, desperately wanting U.S. stability while maintaining back channels with Tehran. No one wants a full-scale kinetic conflict, but no one wants to lose geopolitical leverage. Zoom out and look at the entire board. We're analyzing the most dangerous strategic chess match of the 21st century. The United States applies maximum pressure with military presence and economic sanctions. Iran counters move for move with asymmetric harassment, propaganda, and proxy militias. Neither side is backing down. The U.S. demands Iran dismantle its coastal threats. Iran demands economic blockades be lifted before negotiations begin. Both sides are waiting for the other to blink first. In militarized environments with this much hardware packed into a small space, stalemates are incredibly dangerous. It doesn't take a declaration of war to start a fire. All it takes is one miscalculation, one nervous radar operator, one fast boat ignoring a warning shot, one protocol failure, and suddenly everything escalates beyond control. Now here is a crucial tactical detail. The U.S. is not foolish enough to park all high-value assets directly inside the narrowest part of the strait. The core strike group, including the Abraham Lincoln, operates primarily from the wider Arabian Sea. They maintain standoff distance, reducing exposure while retaining full lethal strike capability. This strategic posture affords commanders time to react without exposing a multi-billion-dollar carrier. But with Project Freedom, the dynamic is shifting. They are actively escorting civilian ships through the danger zone. They are increasing their footprint and daily visibility to Iranian forces. It is a universal law of conflict that increased visibility brings increased risk. The closer opposing forces get, the higher the probability of deadly confrontation. The multi-trillion-dollar question is, where does this go from here? Right now we are trapped in a highly volatile transitional phase. Missiles allegedly launched. Unverified claims broadcasted, thousands of combat-ready forces deployed. The international community watches with dread. Realistically, there are only three outcomes. Scenario 1, de-escalation. Diplomatic back channels pay off. Both sides step back slightly, saving face. The military rhetoric cools down. Scenario 2, the new normal of continued pressure. No explosive conflict breaks out, but tension never drops. Small incidents continue, a drone shot down, a ship harassed, an exhausting standoff that keeps global markets jittery. Scenario 3, the nightmare scenario, rapid escalation. A real incident occurs. A missile finds its target. A U.S. vessel or massive oil tanker takes a direct hit. A red line is crossed, triggering a kinetic military response. Overnight, we are looking at an uncontrollable regional conflict with the strait completely shut down. The cold, hard reality is nobody actually wants option 3. The cascading consequences would be historically catastrophic. Global oil prices would shatter records, vital shipping routes would be severed, and neighboring countries would be dragged into the fray. The situation could spiral into a global crisis faster than anyone could contain it. But in the ruthless arena of the Middle East, no one wants to appear weak. Showing weakness invites further aggression. Both leadership structures are executing an impossible balancing act between projecting ultimate strength and exercising strategic restraint. Demonstrating hard power while maintaining operational control is never easy in a region this volatile. As we analyze what is unfolding in the Arabian Sea, understand this isn't just about one unverified missile claim. It's about a systemic struggle for control of an irreplaceable global choke point, dominance over international trade, and the balance of power where empires historically bleed. We are watching history unfold in real time. Every tactical move, diplomatic statement, and radar ping matters because the stakes are undeniably high. The real question isn't what happened yesterday, but what happens tomorrow. Do cooler heads prevail? Or are we witnessing the opening act of something much bigger? It feels like the pressure is building to an unsustainable level. Geopolitical pressure, much like physical pressure, doesn't stay safely contained forever. It either gets slowly released or it violently explodes. That is exactly why this situation demands your attention. What happens in the dark, crowded waters of the Strait of Hormuz never stays there. The shock waves will reach your grocery store, your gas pump, and your stock portfolio. It affects everyone, and that's exactly why the whole world is holding its breath. All right, that's the full, unvarnished breakdown. Stay sharp, stay deeply informed, and I'll see you in the next one.